Are any of you up here 13 years old? Are you? No, not yet. No one's 13. Well, that's how long me and Becca have been married. So if you feel old, we've been married longer. And that's why we've missed last week. We went out to Delaware to celebrate our anniversary. And we had a good time, but I heard you guys had a good time with some baptisms in here, huh? Congratulations to whoever got baptized. Now, we were out there, and the ocean has big waves, and Micah and Kyle got baptized too, but they weren't planning on it. They had a good time, but I had to be on watch because they're big waves, and it would actually pull them out. And one morning, the beach that I like to go to, there's not very many people around, so they didn't have lifeguards. But one morning, we wanted to see this grand beach that had a boardwalk, and there's a lot of people there. Well, I seen all the lifeguards gather in a circle, and they were preparing what station they had to sit at, and were preparing their day, when behind me, a father with two little girls went out into the water. And all of a sudden, I seen these lifeguards run down the beach as fast as they could. And I looked, and I seen what was going on, but they had to run quite a ways because they weren't stationed yet. By the time they reached the water, the father had gone in and pulled the little girl out, and she was safe. But it did something to my heart to see how dedicated those lifeguards were. I mean, I have never seen a young 15, 16-year-old boy run so fast, and he was throwing stuff as he was running, getting ready to dive in that water. It did something to me. I seen that compassion that he gave everything he had. So the story that we have today is about people lying around a pool. Now, this pool had 5 porches, and I would have done anything for a porch out on the beach in Delaware. It was so hot. So thank God these guys had a porch over them. Now, they were all lying there waiting for the water to stir. But before I get into it, I'm just going to read this chapter. And can I get all of you children just to stand up while I read 9 verses? Can all of you just stand right up front here? There we go. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is at Jerusalem by the sheep market a pool, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Bethesda, having 5 porches. And these lay a great multitude of impotent folk, of blind, halt, withered, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain season into the pool, troubled the water. Whosoever then first, after the troublings of the water, stepped in, was made whole. And a certain man was there, which had an infirmity 38 years. Jesus saw him lie and knew he had been there a long time. He asked him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered and said, Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me in the pool. Jesus said to him, Rise, take up your bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole. He took up his bed and he walked. You children can be seated. Why do you think I had you guys stand up? Number one, I am thankful that each one of you guys can stand. Laying around this pool was crippled people. They had withered legs. They weren't healthy, right? Number two, most importantly, is when you stand up, when you read the Word of God, what is that showing to God? Showing Him respect, honor, right? When we just celebrated the 4th of July, and when the national anthem is sung times, do we stand up, put our hand over our heart? Because we respect our country and everyone that sacrificed for Him. So that's what I'm trying to get to your head. We respect God, what He has done for us. So, what can we learn from this story today? Well, it says there was a great feast going on in Jerusalem. And when this feast happened, I believe it was when this feast happened. It doesn't say exactly when the water was stirred. It just says at certain times an angel would come down and stir. But at this feast, there were many people gathered there. And as you can see, a lot of them could not stand or walk. They were lame. Were withered. They were hanging out by this pool. Now, it says, an angel went down at a certain season and troubled the water. Whosoever then first, after the troubling of the water, stepped in would be healed. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, kids. I had a hard time this morning figuring out, first of all, how do you say that name? Pool of Bethesda. Beth means God or house, and Esda means mercy. So it's a house of mercy. And I was like, really? How could this be a house of mercy if all these lame people are there and God only sends one angel and the first guy to get in the water is the one to be healed? How is that mercy when there's 20 other people sitting there? And how's that mercy if the lame paralyzed guy can't ever get in? I said, how is that merciful? Do you have an answer? Well, he's not exactly in the water. Now, if I was this person and I couldn't walk, it wasn't allowed, but I think I would have laid right next to the pool and I would have hung my arm in the pool all the time. I would be the first one. But obviously you weren't allowed to do that because I am sure he thought of every way possible and there just wasn't a way. I don't know if this reservoir, this water, some say that it was used for, because it was by the sheep's gate, so when they made all the sacrifices, it was used to clean all the blood, and so it might have had to be ceremonial clean, so therefore, I don't know how they could all get in when the angel came down. So I'm not quite sure the story of it all. I know Tim spoke on it once, and I was going to ask Tim what he thought of it, but he's not here today, so I can't pick on Tim. So I should have done my own study, but I'm just trying to figure out as I'm teaching you guys. So I was struggling with God saying, how is that merciful? But what happens, other people struggle with God and say, how is God merciful if he sends good people to hell? So if we don't understand the scriptures, what we try to do is make God into an image that we think is right, that we think, and we make him into this big, fluffy, lovey teddy bear when he's not, right? He says the reason you can't go to heaven is because you have sin in your life. And when we understand that he has a solution for sin, we say, oh, we follow your plan and what you say, you are all-knowing. So I don't necessarily have to understand this story. I know God is still merciful because he goes on to say in Romans 9:15, he said unto Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. And we know that God had compassion because when Jesus walked into here, he went straight to that guy, and that guy didn't argue with him, which I'll explain later. I knew the lifeguard had compassion, the actions he took, okay? He was there to save people, and that's what Jesus was doing. You didn't even have to ask questions. I knew the intent of his heart. Now, James goes on to say, behold, we count them happy which endure. Could you say all these people were happy? Well, maybe some of them, if they knew they could run faster than the others and get into the pool. But ye have heard of the patience of Job and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. So God does have a lot of mercy. 1 Timothy says, howbeit for this cause I have obtained mercy, that in me first Jesus Christ might show forth all long-suffering, for a pattern to them which should hereafter believe on him life everlasting. So Jesus had long-suffering, and long-suffering means to suffer long. So these guys were suffering very long in order to be healed. So the story goes on. Now there was a certain man there which had an infirmity 38 years. Now I hope this man didn't hang out by the pool for 38 years because there was only seasons that the angel came, and I hope he could go home, have someone to take care of him, and then when that season arrived, he would hang out by the pool. Because if not, he had a very miserable life. And he probably didn't have a good life anyway, but hopefully it could be better with friends and family and encouragement around. Jesus came in, he see him lying there, and he knew he had been there a long time. And he said, would you be made whole? You want to be made whole? Now, think about it. If you were a bystander, you'd think, Jesus, that's a silly question. He's lying here, he's paralyzed. Of course he wants to be made whole. But Jesus didn't stop there, because the guy said, well, I don't have any man to help me get in the water. I don't have any help. And as soon as I try and wiggle my way over, someone jumps in the water ahead of me. But Jesus said, rise, take up thy bed, and walk. Now, if I were to go into a hospital and look at a paralyzed guy, or even if we go to the nursing home, there's a lot of people on beds laying there. Some of them are big. And I'd say, would you guys want to get up and run? Well, get up and run. The staff there would look at me and say, this is the last time you're coming here. You're very disrespectful and rude. You don't talk to people like that. Well, what about this guy? He asked him, would you be made whole? Now, some beggars, some people, they sit there and they really don't want to get better. It is much easier to sit there and beg for money and go home, spend the money, and sit there again the next day. So I think Jesus was actually asking you, if I make you whole, your two legs are going to walk. Now, you can't beg for money no more. Now you have to make a living for yourself. You have to work. You have to provide for you. And if you probably didn't have a family, but if you would, it's not easy. I got up yesterday morning because of all the rain. We had a bunch of work to do. I climbed into a dump truck at 6:30 because I had to do off-road stuff and I was afraid it's going to rain. I dumped my last load of dirt at 9 o'clock last night. That's not easy. That was a long day. It was dusty. It wasn't fun. I would much rather sat there with a baggie in the shade by a pool. Think about it. So Jesus said, do you really? But I do not want to be paralyzed. So I'll take all of that dust and all the sun. So he said, take the bed and walk. So this man didn't even ask a question. It doesn't show that he asked anything. It says immediately the man was made whole. He took up his bed and he walked. So he rolled up his bed and he walked. And I'm glad this image shows him carrying the little bed, because you children, the beds you sleep in, what are they? Twin-size beds. They have a big mattress. They have a headboard, a footboard, rails, right? It would be pretty hard to take up your bed and walk. So for this one, you can think more of a sleeping bag or something a little bigger. Whatever they had, they used to do with a lot less, because a lot of times especially Abraham and them, they were moving all the time with tents. So they weren't dragging no mattress around from place to place. So put that out of your mind. And another thing, this was on the Sabbath. So the Sabbath being Sunday, and the Jews had made a lot of rules that you could do absolutely no work. And as soon as they seen him carrying his bed, they approached him and said, why are you carrying your bed? Well, guy said, well, the man that made me whole said, take up your bed and walk. And they said, well, who is this man? He said, I don't know. See, Jesus didn't go around giving out business cards saying, here, my name is Jesus and I can heal you. He was trying to keep it a secret, right? Because Jesus' ministry right then wasn't to heal everyone. If it would be, he would have taken time to heal every last person there. But that's not the end goal. That's why if I don't understand part of the story, that's okay. In the end, if I trust him, obey him, I'll all understand it. So they said, well, let's see, I got to find out where I am here. So afterward, the man, they must have not thrown the guy in jail. They just let him walk. But afterward, the guy went straight to the temple. and rightly so. He should have gone to the house of God to be inspected by the priest to make sure he's whole, or to give God thanks for that he's whole. And Jesus went to the temple and found him. And there Jesus said to the man, he said, "Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee." So he said, don't sin anymore. And the man departed and went back to the Jews, and he told them, hey, I now know the man who made me whole, and his name is Jesus. Well, I am not sure why that man did that, but he did. And from now on, the Jews hated Jesus. They didn't like him much to begin with anyway. Now they were looking for a to kill Jesus. They despised him. So they came to Jesus and said, why did you tell this man to carry his bed? Why are you working on the Sabbath? And Jesus answered them, and he said, so they confronted Jesus, and Jesus said, my Father worketh, and I work. Now they were really mad, not only because he had broken the Sabbath, but because he was saying that God was his Father, and he was making himself equal with God. Now, it might have made them mad that he said that God works on the Sabbath, but you know what it does for me? It comforts me. Because think of it. If God would say, I'm going to sleep in this morning, I'm not going to work, what do you think would happen with the sun or the moon or the universe, or he'd just let everything go? Don't you think it would be chaotic? Or he would need to protect me to not do... God works, and that comforts me, and therefore I can sleep in, I can be worry-free knowing that God's working for me, right? So that gives me peace, that knowing that God is working. But it made them very mad, because they were waiting for Jesus. They were waiting for the Messiah to come, and this guy was saying that he was Messiah, and they didn't believe it. So it made them angry. Now, to go back to when Jesus was talking to this guy, I'm going to be wrapping it up here. He told him, don't sin anymore, lest something worse can happen to you. Is there anything worse that you kids can think about besides being paralyzed for 38 years, lying beside a pool, not having any hope that you'll ever get healed, because every time you try and wiggle it in, someone goes in front of you? What do you have to live for at this part in your life? What worse could happen to you? Anybody think what could be worse than lying beside a pool crippled? Dying. Exactly. Now, what? He'd be dead. He'd be out of his misery. That wouldn't be so bad, would it? Exactly. If he goes to hell, that is where that's what Jesus was saying. If you keep on sinning, something worse is going to happen to you. Okay? Now, a couple weeks ago, I don't remember when I was teaching it, but I said, let's see. So to go back, what you said, sin, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. So the worst thing is going to hell. Now, why do we have to go to hell? Because of sin, right? So sin can't be part of God, so it has to go down. Now, Jesus explained, let's see, I lost my thought. So a couple weeks ago, I was saying that Jesus doesn't make bad people good, remember? So what does Jesus? If he didn't heal all the sick people, he only healed some. And if he doesn't make all bad people good, what does Jesus do? He makes dead people alive, right? So if he makes dead people alive, then that's what he was actually after this guy. He was saying, even though I'm going to heal you, stop sinning, because when you die, I don't want something worse to happen to you. So Another thing that helped me, 1 Timothy says, God our Savior, who will have all men be saved. So he didn't heal all these people because that's not his plan, but he does want all of them to be saved. And he explains how to be saved to these Jews that were giving him a hard time and were so mad at him. He said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him, because they weren't believing his word, and they weren't believing on God. But he said, if you do those two, you will have everlasting life, and you will not come into condemnation, but pass from death into life. So it's very important to understand God and his words so you understand why he didn't heal all the people and why everyone isn't going to be saved. So God's will is for everyone to be saved. Do you have a question?
Why does the people have to kill why does hell have to kill Jesus?
Why does hell have to kill Jesus? So you wouldn't have to go hell. If Jesus took your hell, then you can go to heaven. He took your place, like Elmer said. He paid the debt he did not owe. Okay? So now, the important thing for you is every person has a free will, and you have a choice. All of us have a choice, right? And we can either accept Jesus or we can reject him. Did these guys accept or reject Jesus? Rejected him, right? So now, remember, when you go through life, there are many choices going through life. How many choices does eternity have? Eternity only has two. Because it's as simple as believing or not believing, accepting or rejecting Jesus Christ. So those are two most important decisions you can make as a child, is to accept or reject. So with that in your mind, you guys can go back to your seats.